Welcome to Living Chronic, the podcast that explores the realities of living with chronic illness and disability while redefining how we thrive in our personal and professional lives. I'm your host, Brandy Shantz, a disabled veteran and chronic illness warrior, here to discuss the challenges, triumphs, and untapped potential of life with a chronic condition. Before we dive in, please take a minute to hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening. Now, let's change the way we think about disability together. Hi, welcome to Living Chronic. This is Brandy Shantz, and I'm here today with Beth Biss, author, chronic illness warrior. She has POTS, asthma, eczema, all the stuff. I think her and I have almost all the same things. We're chronic twinsies over here. So, welcome, Beth.
Hi, so good to be here today.
I'm really excited that you're here today because you've done what I really want to do with my, new chronic illness life, and that's become an author. So
Yes.
you have another book that you're writing. You're doing an entire series. So I just think that's so wonderful, and what a great way to, just get a new creativity about you. So tell me a little bit about how you came to a place where you were ready to write a book.
Well, I tell you, a little bit after I was diagnosed in 2018. I had been ill. I knew something was wrong starting in 1985,
Hmm.
but I didn't receive my diagnosis until I was complaining on Facebook and had a friend say, go see your doctor about POTS. And I saw my PCP about POTS, and she'd never heard of it in 2018. And so she sent me off to a specialist, and they looked at me and did some testing and said, I think you have POTS, but I'm a local doctor. I need to send you to a specialist up at Hershey Medical Center. So I went to see another doctor.
Hmm.
Finally, then got diagnosed. Yes. And then not long after that, I was reading a book where the main character had a head injury and was experiencing dizziness, fatigue, memory loss, uh, brain fog, all these things. And I'm like, that's me.
Hmm.
I don't have a head injury, but all these things sounded like me. I was so excited to see myself in a character in a book.
Hmm.
Then you got to the end of the book, and this person recovered from their head injury. And all these things cleared up and went away, and he was healthy again. And there's a part of me that wanted to throw the book across the room because I'm like, no, I'm not in the book anymore. I mean, I was just frustrated. Prior to having this diagnosis, I don't think I would have cared. I mean, I still had all those issues,
Hmm.
but because I didn't yet have my diagnosis and was able to take all these things that I thought were just unrelated, weird things and put them together as my illness, um, it wouldn't have bothered me. They got better. People improve.
Hmm.
But when I got my diagnosis, I was told this is a chronic illness. There is no cure. We're not really sure how to treat it. We'll do our best to treat your symptoms. You'll just have to live with it.
Hmm.
Then reading about this character who got better, um, I have to admit I was a little jealous. I
Yeah, no,
was
I
a
know
little,
that feeling.
I was hurt. I'm like, why can't I get better?
Hmm.
I have done some things to improve my life, definitely. But there are a lot of things that that you have similar conditions. They will never go away.
Yeah,
You have good days and bad days. Quite frankly, with our condition, it's good hours and bad hours.
that's true.
I tried to have a bullet journal at one point to mark how my day went, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I end up coloring so many different colors in these little squares for my day because I went through so many different things during my day. I'm like, I give up. I couldn't do that.
Hmm.
Tracking that didn't work for me because it changed so much. But yeah, so I experienced that with that character and a frustration with that book. And then at one point, a few years after that, my mom said to me, you are really moping around. You need to get a hobby. All right, I'll get a hobby. And so I need to think of something that I could do that was doable.
Hmm.
Some things just aren't doable anymore. But I was getting back into journaling for myself. I thought, I'll learn about writing. And so I started taking some online classes. I really got excited about it, got some ideas to make a book. And then I'm like, oh, not just a book, a series.
Yeah.
And I thought, I want to see if I can make money with it. I want to see if I can give this to other people and share my story with the world and invite other people into my experience and encourage women. And I thought I want to be an author, not just do this for the fun of it, but really put these stories out into the world. And so I decided to write a series. Uh, I don't advise a lot of people to decide I want to make a hobby and then decide you want to make money from it. That's generally not a good idea. Although that is a problem I've had consistently throughout my life, that I pick up a hobby, decide I will make this as a Christmas gift, make dozens of them, and then never do it again.
Right. Yes.
So it is a concern that I have. Although I am working on my second book. I've printed my first book, published my first book in September. I'm already well on my way with my second book. So I think I can stick this one out.
Yeah, I think you're doing pretty great. And I love these stories. And I love that your story includes talking about seeing yourself in a book because so much of what we go through, we struggle largely because we can't see ourselves anywhere else. Nobody really gets out there and talks about being chronically ill and then here's how you get through it and here's how you can find something else to do in life because so many of us lose whatever it was we were able to do prior to being chronically ill, whether that be a career, a hobby you loved, an entire life that you once lived, all these different things, and there's nothing really there to say no, don't worry, here's the next step. And you took that next step and provided that somebody to see, somebody to model for the next person who comes in. And I really love that because it's so important. I think so much of, I know my own depression and other people's depression, it definitely comes from you've lost your life as you once knew it. Now what? And
Exactly.
there's the what.
Yeah. And I am I am making available to people not just myself as a model, but the characters in my books. So
Hmm.
like for my first book, my main character Sonia, she has a condition that I don't have. I had
Oh.
to research this, I had to learn about it. But she had a goal in life. Most of
Hmm.
us do. Most of us have a goal. She has this goal. She has this objective. She receives a diagnosis that makes her realize I can't go after that anymore. I have to completely change my plans. This upends her life. How is she going to live now? And so in this story, I examine how she relates to her family, how she relates to her friends, how she relates to whatever her career goals are, because this changes her whole life. A lot of illnesses do. And
Hmm.
so my plan is for with all of my stories, all of my novels, to have a woman who has to make decisions about how to live her life
Hmm.
differently. Sometimes she'll have known she's had illness for a while. Sometimes it will be like, oh, ta-da, I have to deal with this thing now. How do I cope?
Hmm.
But I always want to show women that there is a way to get through this. It's going to look different for everybody.
Hmm.
There are different ways to deal with your anger, to deal with your depression, to manage your symptoms. And so I want to write about a lot of different illnesses so people can see how different people have to deal with their illness. What are different things you can use in your life? Because for her, it was her vision that she was dealing with, having
Hmm.
changes. And I know some of the things she dealt with, I haven't had to deal with, but some of them I have. My eyes are much more sensitive. I have to be very careful about being in the sun. I have to be careful about having things well lit. I know that it sometimes annoys my family members that I always turn lights on, but I need, it's this ironic thing. Being in the sun, too much light. Being in a room, gotta have the light on.
Yes.
But
Yes.
there are different ways to manage things, and you have to be willing to experiment. This is a tough thing. I mean, I know when I got my diagnosis, I'm like, so what do I do? And my doctor said to me, "Well, here's some things you can try."
Oh, that's great.
Okay. And she listed a lot of things. And I said, "Should I do all of those?" And she said, "No. What you should do is try one for a while, see what works for you, move on to something else."
Mm-hmm.
So I was basically becoming a scientist about my own life.
Yes.
I was really having to take all these different suggestions she had and just try them out and see what worked. Because for some people, these things work great, and for others, they don't. So I had to be willing to say, all right, I will experiment with these aids, with these schedules, with these medicines,
Mm-hmm.
and just play around with them and see what works for my life. And so I will do that in my novels as well. Have them experiment with what they're using, and have them experiment with what's going on in life and how people support them and sort of thing. Just you really got to learn to feel your way through it and be comfortable with that. It's kind of weird to suddenly go, okay, I've got a diagnosis, now I know what to do, and then
Mm-hmm.
be told, ah, no, sorry, sorry, no. Now it begins the experiment phase. We're gonna experiment with what medicines we give you. We'll try this. If it doesn't work, we'll try something else. You're going to change your routine,
Mm-hmm.
and just being willing to play with all those things. And I discovered that since with POTS, I get a lot of brain fog and
Yes.
confusion and memory loss and those sort of things, that I had to write things down. I had to make lists for myself. I had to make charts. I
Mm-hmm.
had to keep track of things. And like some things I don't keep track of anymore. Once I got it, I was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I also had to make this very clear chart for myself that when my blood pressure got down to a certain level, what did I need to do to help myself? Because I go and take my blood pressure and look at how low it was and go, what do I do? I don't know what to do.
Right.
I don't remember what I'm supposed to do. And so when I was feeling better, I made a chart.
Yes.
When my blood pressure is this low, I need this. And so
Mm-hmm.
I actually made a chart for myself about, when it's this low, you need to do these things. We've got here.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a while, I kept that in my case with my blood pressure cuff. And I'd pull it out, I'd take my blood pressure, I'd look at the numbers on the machine, I'd look at my chart and go, I have a system. I know what to
Mm-hmm.
do. Uh, the case fell apart, I threw it away. I threw it in the chart because after a year, I didn't need it anymore.
Right.
But for a while, I depended on that because when my blood pressure got really low, uh,
It's
other
bad.
than panic, I didn't know what to do.
I honestly, sometimes I just don't know what I would do without my husband sometimes because he sees things before I do. We live together, so and I'm sure. Well, I'm certain he's right. I exhibit certain things right before I'm about to fall, pass out, something terrible, and he sees it first. But I don't know what I would. But he knows exactly what to do. I mean, he's my caregiver. I'm not sure I would know what everything to do if I was living by myself. So a chart is a really great suggestion. These types of tools really do help us. I mean, AI has been a life changer. Honestly, ChatGPT, I always have it on my phone. And if I'm, pressed and can't think straight, I know I can go to ChatGPT for help. Ask questions at the doctor, tell people what to do. um, there's a lot of really great assistance because we can really live life quite normally. I love that we see Katie Ledecky out there winning gold medals with pots.
Yeah,
It's really great to see other people like us succeeding. And I
yeah,
love one of the things I love the most about your book is there is this moment where it's about changing how you think and how you do things. And I think so often, we hear this overcome, right? Overcome it all. Do everything anyways. And it's just not always possible, I cannot be the person I was before I was sick. And it's healthy to take a moment, step back and say, okay, how am I going to adjust my life so that I can still live and do things that I love but with this disease, instead of
Mhm.
consistently trying to do the same things over and over and over again, and then just becoming depressed because you can't be the person you were 10 years ago. So I really enjoy that. And I think it's really important for everybody to hear and see and model. We need more people out there putting that in books, talking about it, because I mean, and I love people who share, but let's be honest, there's a lot of folks out there on the speaking circuit and wherever else who are just there to say, and then I overcame and did all the stuff that I wanted to anyways. And it's like, well, how? Why? What? Like, well, I can't do it. What are you doing? Like, I'm still here doing stuff, but let's be honest.
Yeah, when you have a chronic illness, you have to be willing to say, okay, the person who I was, or maybe even the person who I thought I was going to be, I've got to modify this.
Yeah,
Um, and understand that people have diseases have a whole spectrum of how much they affect people,
that's true.
and chronic illnesses often vary in intensity. They change in how much they're affecting you because we have flares.
Yeah,
This is not an illness where we're always at this level, or
right.
it changes, and so it can be confusing for other people to understand. They don't understand why yesterday you were in bed and today you seem fine,
Right.
and it's also hard for us to comprehend too. You know, I spent decades trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And I had many doctors who would say, I wouldn't worry about it if I were you. Now, I think for the most part, they were trying to be compassionate or trying to be encouraging toward me. It's okay. It wasn't okay. I was worried. And that didn't make me feel better.
We still get doctors that tell us that, oh, it's nothing. Don't worry. You're just passing out all the time. No
Yeah,
big deal. Um, and sometimes they mean well, sometimes they're just ignoring us. Uh, sometimes they're so overworked, they have no idea what they're doing anymore. They're just exhausted. We
right.
have a lot of problems that we can cover in here, but, you know, like many of us, you were told not to worry about it.
I was told not to worry about it. And the tricky thing with POTS was it was so many different things, so many different
Hmm.
weird little things that would come and go. Come
Yes.
and go, show up for a while, disappear, be a problem, not be a problem. So these appearing and vanishing symptoms, I think, made it hard to diagnose. But
Yeah.
also, I live in a rural area, um, and so my local doctor that I was seeing in 2017 had never even heard of POTS. Now
You
she
know,
sent me to a neurologist who did know POTS, but
yeah.
she was not that neurologist then was not able to diagnose me. She did not have the equipment. She did not have
Right.
a tilt table. So she had to send me to a bigger hospital to get that test. But to go to a doctor that said, I've never heard of this was disheartening.
I
I mean,
know.
I felt bad because I was complaining on Facebook. I was complaining on Facebook.
No, but
I've
how much
got
do we get from
anemia
that?
again. Yeah, I've got all these symptoms. I'm dizzy. I'm tired. I don't know what to do. And a friend said, I went back over your other statements about this. You sound a lot like me a couple years ago. I have POTS. Get stuff checked out for that. And so when I went to my doctor and said, I had a friend who suggested I could test her POTS. And she was like, oh.
Yeah. Well, I think, well, for many of us, it is becoming more known just because COVID has
COVID.
seen it, really increase in quite a
Oh,
few
yeah.
people. So that's helpful. But as for like the Facebook complaining, my goodness, that gets us really far, to be honest.
It's weird.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, you know, you put it out there and people recognize it. We're not medical professionals, but whew, I remember how confusing it was to have my condition. And I've
Yeah.
been out on social media in various platforms and seen somebody on there like, I don't know what's wrong. And they start listing symptoms: fatigue, dizziness, vertigo,
Yeah.
um, difficulty breathing, weird heart rhythms.
Hmm.
And you'll see all these doctors coming in saying, "Well, I don't know what it is, but I don't know what it is." And then inevitably there'll be somebody like myself or like you who comes in and says, you should probably check for long COVID. You need to go to a cardiologist and get tested for POTS. You need to take a look and see if you have this dysautonomia." So doctors don't necessarily know about it still because I think they have their view of the world and what they're doing each and every day. But for those of us who have been through it, we know how crazy the symptoms sound. I mean,
Yeah.
I was certain when I finally got diagnosed with the dysautonomia, I was certain I was dying because my goodness, what else was wrong with me? I was having constant UTIs. My heart rate's just shooting up to 180 sitting down. And then, of
Mhm.
course, the biggest one was, having difficulty swallowing and having severe pain in my stomach and
Mhm.
not being able to have a bowel movement. And as a Crohn's patient, both me and my GI were like, "Well, this is it. Code red. We know what to do. Get you in here now." And when they got me into that room for the colonoscopy and endoscopy, even my doctor was like, "Huh, no cancer. Well,
Yeah.
that's something." And I woke up and I'm like, "Really? We're fine?"
Yeah.
Wow, because, certainly it sounded like cancer, but it's not. It's this dysautonomia. So it's very tricky. You go to all the wrong doctors for it, so you're really going to doctors eliminating possibilities. You want to make
Right.
sure it's not the, colon cancer. You want to make sure you don't have an esophageal cancer. You want to make sure you don't have heart disease or, something else. So it is a bit of process of elimination, and nobody could have convinced me that my autonomic nervous system was malfunctioning
Right.
until, we'd ruled out everything else. And the neurologist said, "Oh, wait for this diagnosis. You're going to love this one." And I thought, what the heck is coming my way?
Yeah.
But,
And I know that at the time when I was doing research for myself online about dysautonomia, I panicked. There
yes,
is one form
yes,
that is fatal. It's very rare,
yes.
and I freaked out. I didn't want to go see a doctor about this because I'm like, oh no, there's a fatal form and I must have this. And shut everything down and ran away. And then had the presence of mind to go, wait a second. I've been dealing with these issues since 1985, and this was 2017. I don't think I've got the fatal version of it.
Yeah, the 6 to
I've been
10
living
years is
with,
up. Yes, I think we've all Googled and saw the 6 to 10 years left to live, and it's like,
yeah,
well, think they could have given me that in a better way, huh?
yeah, yeah. But yeah, going to a doctor and having a list of your questions, writing down your symptoms. I mean, or even having a person with you. Oh
Yes.
my goodness, those are things that are so helpful. If you know you're trying to get a diagnosis, you know you're searching for an answer, just take the time to write down all your questions, because if you assume you're going to know what those questions are when you get in
Oh,
there because you've been worried about them for months, it's not,
yes.
no. It
Well, and there's
you're
just
gonna be so nervous.
it's almost
And
like
so I
stage
just,
fright. Yeah, you're in there, you've got 15 minutes, you're like, "Oh god, oh
yes.
god, oh god,
Oh yeah, the
what do I
pressure
need
to
to
get it
do?"
done on, oh yeah. So if you can have someone with you, someone you trust, or even write
Mhm.
it down,
Bring that
those are so
Chat
helpful.
GPT app every
Yeah.
time. I'm like, "Chat
Tech
GPT,
yeah,
here's my
technology
issues. Help me.
can
What
really
questions
help.
do I need to ask?"
If your doctor's going to let you record your
Mhm.
time together,
Yeah,
that way you can play it back, so you can have a transcript.
everything
I mean,
there, yeah.
the fact that there's so many things technology can do to help us now
It's so
is
helpful.
great.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, you can use these things to help. Use these things to assist you. If you aren't sure what your doctor said, even if you got someone else there with you, another person can be nervous, not hear correctly, also get worried. I mean, and so if you are actually able to voice record it, have an actual recording, and then you put to some sort of transcription service, now you have printed copy.
Yep. It is helpful. My phone has that little device has given me so much help since going through this. It's amazing. Because I mean, yeah, imagine where we would be without it. So many doctors who still don't know anything at all about POTS or dysautonomia, MCAS, all these
Mhm.
various diseases. It took me, with the help of a lot of research, Facebook complaining with friends jumping in, and thumbing through some NIH articles forever and ever. It still took me 4 years to finally get to a diagnosis. But imagine if I didn't have all of that, if we didn't have social media where people could share that, hey, this is what I'm going through, and this is on the rise with COVID. And it's all very helpful, or even just helping you to figure out if something might be you. I remember, because for me, all of this started with a medication I was on, and it was long before I ever had COVID. And I thought, well, that can't be right, because this all started for me with the med. And then I learned again through Facebook and some of the groups, no, this can come to you from a medication as well. So it is very helpful to have these things available to us. And I know a lot of doctors like to kind of scoff and, ugh, getting internet diagnosed. Well, sometimes the internet's pretty good. And,
It can help. Yeah,
I don't think I necessarily would have gone to a neurologist and said, my heart's doing weird stuff and I always have a UTI,
yeah.
if I had not read about this online.
And I know that for me, Facebook has allowed me to connect with a dysautonomia support group.
Mm
When I first got diagnosed, I joined like 5 support groups.
hmm. Mm hmm.
And I found that some of them weren't right for me. I found I had to get active in them for a while, get to know people, and find the one that's right for me. So I would say, whatever your illness, there are support groups out there.
Absolutely.
So, if you are, if you need to not go out, if you need to be safe and sort of somewhat homebound, um, finding something online is really helpful because I finally found a group that's really very helpful and supportive. Then also for me personally, every year in the month of October, since it's Dysautonomia Awareness Month,
Mm hmm.
I post lots of things about dysautonomia.
Yeah.
I take a lot of the lovely pre-made graphics from Dysautonomia International and I repost them. I talk about all the different symptoms you could possibly have. I talk about all the different systems that it affects. I talk about research. I talk about doctors. I mean, I just take all these lovely graphics that they make available and repost them because I had a friend who just happened to see my post
Yeah.
and just happened to go, "Oh, that sounds like me," and reach out to say, "You should, you should check to see if POTS is what's causing this." So I'm very thankful for that, and I want to see if I can extend the favor because COVID is causing POTS.
It is.
There are other illnesses causing POTS. There are medications causing POTS. I mean, I think I might have had an infection as a young child or a teenager that caused this. I don't honestly know. I've
Yeah.
had this since I was like 13. So finding a cause, it's just not going to happen. Now I've got a doctor who truly, truly believes that diabetes is causing my POTS, and he wants to cure my diabetes. Although I've never been shown to have diabetes, this is what he's sure. It's gonna drive me a little nuts trying to convince him
Yeah.
don't actually have. I don't know how diabetes could cause my POTS, so I don't have diabetes. Anyway, that's another argument. But if I can get information out to people and have them look at this little colorful little graphic and go, "Oh, I've got some of those things.
Yeah.
Maybe I should think about this," just to offer some help and support to other people.
Absolutely. And they may not have it, but to at least say, hey, I never thought about going to see a neurologist because I'm having all of these other symptoms.
Right?
And,
Yeah.
you
Because some
know,
of these chronic illnesses, you end up with multiple doctors because this affects your whole body, not just a system. And also, the whole human body is connected.
it really, yeah. I mean, when I went in to see the neurologist about this, this was a new neurologist. I started having severe, severe migraines, and I was just like, okay, somebody's got to fix me. This is terrible. But, he started talking to me and, he found out I had Crohn's disease. And he said, what, the gut is the little brain and they're very much connected. And you could be dealing with a lot of these things as a result, as part of having Crohn's disease that's caused this. And I can see that because every little anything I get in life causes a GI reaction on me because I have Crohn's disease. And, if I eat something, the whole body breaks down. So I do have to think about what I'm eating, what I'm doing, how I'm treating my body. So I really understand that. Because people like us, we see that every day. It's not a foreign concept to us. I see where my body's connected, and I see how, you know, eating something that's processed will immediately make my joints stiffen up. And that doesn't make sense to probably healthy people, but to us,
Right.
it's like, well, you had
Well,
something
of course.
processed, of course. Who does
Yeah.
that? Get away from the Oreos.
Yeah. But there's a sort of a general feeling, at least within the American healthcare system, that these are separate. I mean, we
Right,
go to see separate specialists.
right.
So these are these separate systems in your body, and the fact that they are really, really, really intertwined
Yeah,
doesn't really compute with a lot of people.
yeah,
And yeah, you're right. I can do certain things and realize how weird things. I mean, like I take a shower, I get tired and my stomach hurts.
yeah,
What sense does that make? But when I think about how when I take a shower, I'm using warm water and my blood starts pulling my feet, and then
yep,
my brain isn't working, and that affects my nervous system, and it all just cascades down into my stomach hurting and
yeah.
feeling tired and dizzy.
I know. I know. The whole body's interconnected. We gotta, I always say that we should start talking to the physical therapist more often. They always know what's going
Yes.
on. And you know what? They know all about the body being connected, because every time I have a running injury and I go in there, 90% of the time they're like, let's see if those weak glutes are causing this knee pain. And every time it's the weak glutes and the weak core. Every time. They know what's going on. Talk
Yeah,
to those folks.
I've seen a physical therapist several times, and every
Yes.
time I see him, I love what he does for me.
Mm,
Well, I started seeing him in 2018 before I got my diagnosis. And I said to him, I'm going to be seeing a doctor about this. I'm not sure what's going on, but he was helping me. I thought my PT was helping me with something completely unrelated. And I come to him and say, okay, I've got POTS. And again, this is 2018. And he's like, I'm sorry, you have what? I've never heard of this. Fortunately, I could come to him with this pamphlet, almost a book, that my doctor gave me. I'm like, okay, this is what my doctor says about exercises. And he's like, okay, okay, all right. He's reading through this, going, all right, now I understand why I'm having all these problems with you, with what I'm trying to do with you.
right.
And so I worked with him. It was technically outside what my prescription was with him, but he really helped me figure out, like, why do I feel so unwell and sick after a shower? There were a number of things. It wasn't just the hot water. It was the standing for so long.
Yeah.
It was the fact that when I shower, I would look up into the shower head, and looking up isn't proper for me.
Yeah.
I'd reach my arms up over my head. I would wash my hair every day. Every day, I'm in the hot water. I've
Mhm.
got my arms over my head. I used to have long hair that I colored and I styled. Notice I don't style the color anymore. But yeah. So he helped me figure out all these things that were causing problems in my everyday life that I was trying to do. And when I stopped doing these things, I'm like, my mornings are so much better when I
Yes.
take a short, cool shower. I'm not monkeying around with my hair. All these things. I didn't pass out in the shower anymore. I didn't pass out after a shower anymore. It was like, and these things never occurred to me. I don't know why, but it just never occurred to me.
Yep.
I mean, especially never occurred to me that I should stop washing my hair so often.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's
Yeah,
it's interesting. It takes time. It does take time, but you learn these things. You experiment. You figure out how to make it a little bit better the next time. And I tell you what, if I had the power to change something about the healthcare system today with a snap of a finger, I would say that nobody should ever, ever have to get a referral for physical therapy or a nutritionist, and both should always be fully covered. Because if you're
yeah,
eating right, and you're seeing the physical therapist, you're already on a very strong foundation. You're on a strong
Yes.
foundation. Now, that can't fix everything. I
Right.
always tell people that, well, I read a book that you could cure Crohn's with eating. What? I would love if that were true, believe me, because there's nobody that hates a medication more than I do. But here we are, right? So we can't fix everything, but we sure can make it better.
You can help, yeah. So every
Yeah.
time I see my physical therapist, I always say to him, by the way, I've got this other issue I'd like your opinion on. So he's given me lots of different tidbits over the four different times I've gone to see him for different issues. I go in and say, okay, this is what I'm being treated for. This is what I have a question about. And he knows. I mean, now that he's learned more about POTS, he's had several patients with POTS, and he understands body systems. He has to
Yeah.
understand whole body systems better and can talk to me about how to do things and um, really help me work through. I went in with him. I found an exercise program suggested for POTS patients. I know it's called the CHOP program. I think that was the
Yes.
Children's Hospital. I don't remember what the OP
I
stand
can't
for
remember,
anymore.
but I know the CHOP program. I've
CHOP.
researched it myself.
Yes. So I went
We
in
should
with him.
probably, well, you know what? I'll find that and put that in the show notes
With
too,
the show
because I
notes, yeah.
remember finding
And I
that.
said, this is what I want to work with. He's like, great, okay. And he looked at it and said, okay, here's what I know about you that you should already modify with this, or this is what you should take easy or whatnot. So I've used that. So like when I first went to see him, I was having a hard time walking at all. I could
Hmm.
walk. I think I could take about 40 steps, and then I was exhausted. I
Right.
couldn't move any farther. So when I went in and spent my time in their office, their not studio, their facility. It's a pretty big place.
Right.
I'd go in and I'd have this little trail of chairs from where I'd go in and out. They'd have to bring me chairs to walk a few steps and sit down,
Right.
walk a few steps and sit down. And the next time I went in, I was developing better strength, and so I could actually walk the whole way over. But if I had, something that was exhausting me, I had my little row of chairs in and out.
Yeah.
But they said we always know when Beth's been coming to visit us because we have little row of chairs.
Well,
But
and it's interesting. Obviously, Katie Ledecky is a highly, trained, very talented swimmer. Like none of us are ever going to be Katie Ledecky. But it does say a lot about what physical therapy can do for you that she has POTS and she's still out there winning gold medals. So it didn't completely stop her. And I know, swimming is good if you have many of these conditions. I keep getting told to swim. It was my least favorite sport as a triathlete. So I'm very hesitant. But obviously we can do great things with physical therapies. So if we were
Mhm.
really, I truly believe if more of us saw physical therapists, if we really put physical therapists, nutritionists at the forefront of all of our healthcare, we really would see some big improvements in various areas. Can't fix everything, but it sure can help.
I can see how being in water would really help
Yeah.
for a person with POTS, having all that pressure on your lower limbs.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be as strong as compression garments, which I wear, but it would help.
Yeah.
It would certainly help.
Yeah,
So, but yeah,
definitely.
the point of working to improve your health, working to get the exercise that's right for you. I mean, I'm not a good candidate for swimming for a variety of reasons. That wouldn't work for me. So I had to experiment. I do own a little pedal cycle thing,
Yeah.
not that one on the floor. I'm able to stretch it out in front of me so I can be recumbent when I'm exercising. Not have it upright. I did try once in the PT's office a regular stationary bike, and wow, did I feel terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, within like 10 or 15 seconds, absolutely awful. Because I was like, I mean, sometimes I do this. I wonder if this actually is true. And I try something that they say, you shouldn't do this. I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah. Learned the
So,
hard
but
way. Now I
I've
know.
been pedaling, and I have to do this to maintain my health. I pedal twice a day, 45 minutes at a time. Now I have no tension on it. I'm not able to do that because
Right.
when I exert my
Yeah.
large muscles in that way, unfortunately, that causes me problems. So
Right.
I'm not really building any muscle
Hmm.
mass at all, but it has lowered my resting heart rate.
That's great.
It has helped my heat intolerance
Yep.
and my cold intolerance. I'm warmer overall. I used to sleep in layers and wear layers. I just have one layer on right now, just one. I used to, in December, guarantee I was wearing 3 or 4 layers.
Yeah.
So it's helped me. It's improved things for me.
And
Um,
it's important to point that out. So often, and I think the reason so many chronically ill people tend to lean on things like physical therapists and nutritionists, we're the ones always talking about them. I mean, obviously we still need medical doctors. I'm in trouble if we don't have medical doctors. But so often, many of my doctors, their solution is just another medication, which I hate. And I know if I have to take one, I have to. But if I don't have to take one, I'm trying not to. Or just rest or disability or, all of these different things. But there are ways to help our condition that has nothing to do with medication. And like you, I said, I don't know much about medical science at all, but I know exercise science quite well. And when I was having so many heart issues, I talked to my cardiologist and I said, what if I just tried zone 2 heart rate training and just keep doing that, nothing but zone 2 heart rate training and see what it does. And she said, well, I don't see any reason why you can't give that a try. Just make sure you're monitoring your heart. If anything goes up too high, call 911, stop, all these different things. And you know what? I have gotten myself to a place where I no longer have the heart rate that just shoots up to 180 for no apparent reason while sitting on a couch. So the exercise science does work for us. And at various levels, everybody has something different. Everybody responds a little bit different, different, intensities. We all look different. So, everything you use a little peddler. I like to go out and still run, and I was mostly walking. But now I can actually go outside and sick as I am, I'll, run a 10, 30 minute mile and my heart will be right there in zone 2. So, for a sick lady, that's pretty darn good. So
yeah,
it does work. It absolutely works. I want to make sure to ask you about your newsletter because you have a great newsletter. So I want to talk about that real quick before we wrap things up.
absolutely. I started a Substack newsletter, and I really love all the options that this gives me. Um, Being a Substack saves all my newsletters like blog posts. So you can check out my newsletter, Substack, BethBiss.com. Beth, or is it Beth Biss Substack? I don't remember.
We'll put
You
that in
can
the
put that,
show notes too.
yes, but it gives me the opportunity to save this so people can look through all of my different posts, my different newsletters, and look at the titles of things and decide which ones they'd like to read and look through. But I every month, well, I try to send out 2 a month, and I talk about wellness in general. I'm not a medical expert, but I like to talk about what are things you can do in general to help your health, no matter what you have, you know.
Hmm.
So in general, being hydrated is great.
Yeah. I mean, it
So I
works
talk a
every
lot
time.
about various drinks you can make for yourself to help yourself be hydrated. I like to talk about foods that are good to eat. They'll be nutritious for you. I talk about mindset. Mindset is great. Getting into a good mindset and having a good outlook on life will help your health. I mean,
It
the
does.
way that's changed my own health has been wonderful. So I use my newsletter as an opportunity to talk about what are some things you can do for your health that aren't taking medicine,
Hmm.
that are things you can do for yourself. And so I spend my newsletters talking about just gentle, easy little things you can do, affirmations. I mean, just get to the point where you're not beating yourself up about being sick. Because having a self sabotaging idea about your own health
Yeah.
Guess what? It makes you worse.
It does. Nope.
The
100%.
mind is powerful.
Yeah.
And if you think that you're bad for being unhealthy, you're going to be more unhealthy because you think you're
You're
bad.
you're right. It's
Ask me how I know.
yeah. Well, you know how I am. I mean, all these great podcast guests I get, that's how I know. I mean, and that's how I've gotten to where I am now, learning from everybody who comes on this podcast. I learned a lot about that from Emma Paulette. She has done my show twice now because I just loved her so much. She talked about the yoga concept of ahimsa, do no harm. So yes, things are bad. Don't make them
Yeah.
worse. Okay,
Yeah.
you made a mistake. You decided, you had friends over. You opened up a bottle of wine. A second bottle got opened. You ate something ridiculous. You feel terrible. Just stop. Don't do any more harm. It's fine. It's over. Move on. And I think those little lessons, they really add up in helping us to live a really great life.
And so I want all these pieces to kind of work together.
Yeah.
The bits in my newsletter, the advice that I give, and what I talk about in my novels. Because I
Yeah.
have plans to write many more novels to encourage women to help their own health.
Thank you so much for that because that's the big help, and it's not just helpful to read about somebody just like us. It's helpful to see somebody just like us writing books. It's that reminder, fine, we can't have the career we used to, or you know do this or that we used to, but we can still do some pretty great stuff, and that includes writing some great books. So thank you so much for being here today, Beth. I really appreciate it. It's so great talking
Thank
to
you for
you.
having me here. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening to Living Chronic. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Living Chronic. If you could please take a moment to rate and review and share this podcast, this is the best way to help this platform grow and create a community. In the meantime, you can follow along all the social platforms with the handle at Brandy Shantz on Blue Sky and X, and Chronically Brandy Shantz on Instagram and Threads. Don't forget to check out my website, brandyshantz.com. Have an amazing week and see you next time.